Good evening to Madam Silvarani and all my friends. My team members and I from Group 8. Today, we would like to present a topic about diverse voices that represent everyone in the society is important in the context of Malaysia. Malaysia today is a multicultural country with three main ethnic groups, each with its own language and religious practices. There are three main races in Malaysia, which include the Malays, who are the majority Muslims in the country, while the other two main ethnic groups are the Chinese and Indian. Therefore, the right to speak is very important to represent every race in Malaysia now to avoid misunderstandings or biased views from certain parties, because the representation itself means the social process of making and exchanging meaning. And the media is a process social in which humans interact with each other to construct views of realities. Nevertheless, the issue of integration in a multicultural society has never been resolved well in Malaysia. This idea needs to be considered and resolved in relation to the population of Malaysia, the structure of society, and the distinctive characteristic of the ethnic composition and government policies as they stated.
Malaysians have been dealing with a worsening coronavirus pandemic, as well as photos of individuals raising black flags from their cars or homes that appeared on social media at the end of June. The banner, which was labelled with the hashtag Lawan, which meant to battle in Malay, became a protest against the government's inability to fight the pandemic. Muhyiddin Yassin resigned as Prime Minister just days after a 1,000 people of SSR demonstration on 31 July. Pandemics and the issues they have raised have pushed young activism well beyond voting rights. Other young Malaysians, for example, are also making their opinions heard. Young contract doctors, for example, who make up the bulk of COVID-19 medical staff, went on strike in July in protest of the lack of job security. Regardless of skin color, religion, or social status, everyone in Malaysia has the right to freedom of speech.
In a changing Malaysia, mediating identities is important to represent everyone in the society. Some social scientists have flatly rejected text as a source or form of study data. It is considered unscientific or not objective. The subjective nature of the text of everyday defined social reality is never in doubt. This type of rejection, which is frequently subtle and unnoticed, has been normalized in our daily life. For example, in newspaper, it is always to reflect authority-defined voice of all kinds and rarely everyday defined voice. Although the ruling elite has defined the real challenge for Malaysians as creating a united Malaysian nation, the real challenge is to find a middle ground or a compromise between an authority-defined nation and a democratically elected government.
Malaysian, Chinese, and Indians live in a multicultural society. Each ethnic community has been able to retain its cultural identity by preserving and allowing its own language, religions, and traditions. A multiracial society teaches people how to respect and understand the religion and cultures of others that lead to tolerance. Diverse voices that represent everyone in the society play a very important role in protecting individuals who have different opinions. This is because of Malaysians' status as a developing in terms of religion, race and culture. If there is some misunderstanding about the concept of rights at a particular time, an explanation is needed. Therefore, the characteristics of the multiracial Malaysian population cause the importance of freedom of speech to be practiced to avoid interracial disputes if the right to freedom has been abused. Among the freedom rights that have been abused is by threatening or insulting other races openly. It also aims to prevent racial tensions. In the case of freedom speech, this shows that the limits or restrictions on freedom of speech need to be controlled to avoid more serious problems that lead to the problem of interracial fights. Freedom of speech related to matters involving religion, culture, and language still need to be maintained or controlled in order to maintain harmony, in order to create a policy of respect and be a limitation in discussing it openly to avoid misunderstanding among the community.
The conclusion is that the right to speak is very important in the context of Malaysia, regardless of any field and divisions, especially the parts of religion, culture, race, politics, and mediating identities. In order to maintain harmony, freedom of speech connected to religion, culture, and languages must be maintained or limited in order to develop a policy of respect and be a limitation in speaking it freely to avoid misunderstanding within the community. Besides, in the political field, other young Malaysians are voicing their concerns as well. In July, young contract doctors who make up the majority of COVID-19's medical staff went on strike in the protest of the employment insecurity. Everyone in Malaysia enjoys the right to freedom of speech regardless of skin color, religion, or socio-economic status. The actual problem for Malaysians is to establish a medium ground or a compromise between an authority-defined nation and a democratically elected government, despite the ruling elites' definition of the real challenges as creating a united Malaysian nation. So that's all from us. Thank you.